Hey, what's up, guys? Here to do a little meta-analysis because there's been two YCSs. I've been playing a lot these past 2 weeks, and Hartford's on the way, so I feel like it's the best time. We got 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and let's get into it. So, for what I'll talk about first is just the top 16 and top 8 breakdown because I thought that was interesting. 50% of top 8 is a pretty pulverizing number. I don't see I don't think any deck's really been that high. Maybe I know Swordsoul was like half of top 16 or half of top 32 at one point, but I also think at that point Swordsoul was probably the best deck besides maybe like Bird Up. But in this format, I do think Despia has like proven how strong it is. It's a real like good counter to prank kids. It's kind of hard for like prank kids to deal with it even with hand traps. And when we see Andre's build, it's in contrast to Chris' build where it's not playing Designator, it's not playing actually or Adventurers or like any like direct outs to hand traps, but it's still winning. And when you're in top 8, and 50% of people are playing Despia, Super Poly gets a lot better. So Sword Soul also in there. I think Sword Soul is really strong right now, but I still don't think it's like powerful enough, and that's always going to be the conflict when we don't have Protos. Is the deck just seems too. I hate using the word linear, but like that, yeah, that's what I would say. Um, Especially because the builds that are topping aren't even running Auroradon, so like that extra like way to play through a hand trap they don't have. So like if their Ecclesia is getting ashed or their Emergence is getting ashed, which every deck plays right now, pretty much, besides like Andre's build, you're gonna have the same problems that Despia has with playing through hand traps, right? And you're not even running the adventure package, which those Despia builds would probably be doing. So yeah. So I just thought I'd talk about a Sword Soul list real quick. This Walter's list. Now, Walter's been playing this deck forever since like the case tournament came back, so I think he's like one of the best players with this deck, right? Um, and what's he doing? Innovative? Not really much, right? Because it's just 3, 6, 9, 12 hand traps, and these all like at least in my experience playing against Despia, especially with the poly build, like they still have like so much gas that it literally just won't even matter. Bell's strong, not versus Lost, but I do think Bell's really strong and potentially as strong as Ash because it's like you're allowing them to do other plays, yeah, but at least you're negating what everything they've set up because they're adding Ad Libitum to special back Mirror Jade. So if you can stop the loss, it's really good. So Bell's super strong right now. Um, and Tenyi Swordsoul is so good going second regardless, but going first, you don't have that advantage of like your long yawn if people aren't playing the 10-star synchro. I don't know if it's like they're both like kind of long yawn to me. But you don't have the advantage of the second effect where you're banishing a spell because there's not really much you're gonna banish because obviously they're not gonna use their field spell or anything or like the um adventure package because they don't play it. So without that, then it's just like what what are we really doing going first? And it's like Sword Soul just always has this problem where I feel like it just struggles going first and it's not enough gas and like even like making a Chao Feng that doesn't do much versus Despia, right? Like you're stopping the Lebellion because that's the extra deck light. Um yeah, so I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's like consistent. I think it can get you a top, but my experience playing this deck is just I just really like I just feel like there's so many losses that are out of my hands, and it's because my deck is just at a cap. So that's why I don't like Sword Soul right now, although I've played it a lot. So this is just what I want to get into, I guess, just comparing the two winning lists because, whenever you have like back-to-back wins with the same deck, I feel like that's pretty interesting because Yu-Gi-Oh, from what I've seen, has been just diverse like throughout, right? Like there's just so many different decks. I lost to Invoked in the finals. Bird Up one before that. It was a very diverse format where like literally anything could win, and if we're getting to a format where only Despia can win, it's kind of fun to me because I love when there's a best deck. So um it just means hopefully skillful mirror matches. But one thing I wanted to get into is just like how powerful Super Poly is now. Considering everyone's running like the Fright Fur package, a lot of the time they're doing that play where they're summoning a Predaplant and a Mirror Jade. And if they're doing that, your Super Poly just, you know, gets you your own free Predaplant off their 2 cards. And that's like pretty damaging. Like, I mean, what do you do in that scenario? You kind of just lose. Now going first is bad, but at the same time, going first, I've had situations where it allowed me to play through like imperms or hand traps, and yeah. And then we see Dramaturge. A lot of people were cutting Dramaturge. I think Dramaturge is really sweet with branded opening. You know, you can just like activate it on your opponent's turn. I just think it's a strong card, just because it's just like another interruption, right? Yeah, it can be a brick, just like Ad Libitum can be, but I think it's pretty strong. I also think, interestingly enough, with the Upstart Goblin guy, he does come up just because a lot of the time you'll have monsters on your field, and your opponent's good enough to where like they know that to activate your Branded in Red, you have to have one of the cards in the graveyard to pay cost to add it to your hand. So if you have nothing in your graveyard, you can't. Your Branded in Red's dead. So I do like the idea of just like ditching something to my graveyard for free, because it's not really cost, and it's kind of just like a free bonus, right, to draw a card. One interesting thing too, if you do Branded in Red, this is Fallen of Albaz, you cannot use it in your hand as Fallen of Albaz. Just something to pay attention when your opponents play this deck. Talent's interesting, but it's like if we're gonna enter formats where people aren't playing hand traps like Andres, obviously this card diminishes real quick. Crossout Designator has Rose a lot. I do think Designator is super strong, especially in the mirror, but it's like you can't designate a Super Poly, and if you're not playing right, you can't designate the right, which is something I definitely would want to do. So, you know, the strategy of just like, I'm just going to designate Ash or Bell, mainly Ash I'm betting, because you would set the designator for Bell on the next turn, right? It's pretty good. I mean, like when I first initially played this deck, I was like, I'd just lose to hand traps, but testing Andre's build, I do think it plays through hand traps really well, especially just one. And if is there anything more I can say about this list and the cards that are played? I mean, just like I said, Super Poly. I think Lost might fade out of the meta. It's kind of crazy because it's just like doesn't do what a lot of like Yu-Gi-Oh cards do. Like at least Magical Meltdown, you're adding a card initially, right? But this card gets you no benefit at all when you play it, besides like prevention card. But it's a really weird card that I've really not liked, but we see both lists playing it. So here we have Andre's list. Andre's list is really interesting because it's something I was like really thought was crazy when I first saw it, and I didn't think it made sense, but then I just felt like I was an idiot when I actually tried it. Comedy seems like a lot stronger than me than I thought initially. It's just a good card to play around Imperm, their Predaplant, just, you know, literally anything, because it's quick effect, and it doesn't even get banished when you use its quick effect from grave, so you can reuse it on their turn. So if they have like say one Imperm and you have this in grave, their Imperm's going to be dead on your turn and their turn, because like they use it on your turn, you're going to get the tribute effect, and if they don't Imperm, you're just going to use it on their turn, right? So Comedy's a lot more powerful than I thought. Snow, I've been playing with the idea a lot of just playing Valor instead, because it actually does something on their turn. But I think with this list, Andres is just saying that like Snow is good enough as like a foolish card, that because like obviously he's playing Ecclesia, so it's not like he doesn't already have a light unless he thinks he needed the extra light. But in my experience, having 2 lights doesn't come up that much. So it is just like a really powerful card, especially in the mirror. It can force your opponent into awkward plays, but And even going second, you can just normal summon it, because a lot of the time you don't normal summon it and we're not playing the adventure package. But, yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say to that than comparing it to Valor. I think Ecclesia is actually really strong. Even with the adventure package, the fact that you can special summon it, get a Fallen of the Albaz effect going second, like, it's very powerful. I do like the 2 Upstart Goblins, especially with the 3 Fallen of Albaz, like I was saying before. It just sets up his 3 Branded in red, so, like, you know, we're just maxing out on engine cards. And a lot of the time I feel like this deck, when people build it, they just take out too many engine cards, and then they have all these brick hands. But with Andres, it's just like he's going to play through so much. Scythe isn't relevant anymore. I mean, it's also interesting, he didn't play the Tri-Brigade Searcher. He played the Kit Searcher. Kit's insanely strong. You know, adding anything that adds Branded Fusion is pretty sweet, right? So yeah, I think it made sense that this deck would win, and I think it was like bound for someone to just like change the whole deck. I think with Despia, it's just like literally any variant could win. It's just like we're seeing the ones that are proving themselves, and it's really exciting to me, at least for Yu-Gi-Oh. I think this format's sweet. It's like we started with all of us hating Scythe and being like so sad about that. Then as a consequence of that, everyone plays hand traps, and no one's even playing Scythe anymore. And now it's just like, let's play 0 hand traps to take advantage of people playing hand traps, because, you know, they can just be neg. Like, you're trading 1-for-1s, but are you super polying me? Because that's the only thing that's going to change the fate of the game. So, yeah, I think that super poly was super clutch with 8 Despia in top 16. Although I do know Andres played against like Prank Kids and stuff, so although he had this dead card in his deck for these other matchups, it didn't even matter because his deck's just so powerful in those particular matchups. I mean, Despia just has so much advantages to it that other decks didn't have, like playing through Dimension Shifter. You know, Prank Kids can't do that at all. Also very interesting that there can only be 1, so 5 side deck cards for going first. The mirror is rough. Like, you don't like going first in the mirror is not just game, you know. I've not tested there can only be 1 though. I will say that. I do like D Barrier a lot. Token Collector, just because the Sword Soul matchup's so hard. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think there is one of these monsters can send an Earth too, so you could actually send Token Collector. I forget what fusion it is. I don't know if he plays it, but I just remember that in my head. And obviously he's playing the 3000 guy. That's 1 Despia, 1 light, 1 dark. That does come up. Like, your opponent will have 3 monsters in the mirror a lot, so like it's pretty good. I think the field spell is actually very underrated. I mean, it's just a searchable Polymerization. We're literally playing Polymerization in our actual deck, so like the floating capability, if you have your Looper on board, which is easy if you just banish your Mirror Jade, makes sense. I wonder how good the Nibiru was in a side deck, because it doesn't do anything in the mirror. I mean, it's powerful versus decks like Dragon Link, right? But it's a weird 2-of, I think, in the side. Then I was just going to talk about new cards for the event that I think will be relevant. Will people play the Adventure Package now that Illegal Knight's coming out? In OCG, they did not play the Adventure Package. Or they did play the Adventure Package, but I didn't see builds with Illegal Knight. So I think that's interesting, just considering it's a searchable dark with Fateful. And its Compulse effect, you know, bounce 2 fusions, give your opponent this card. You know, that seems kind of worth it to me. So I think it's going to be relevant in the upcoming YCS, even though it's really, really soon thereafter that this card comes out. And then Branded Banishment, I guess, is what it's called now. Exile is what it was called in the OCG. This card, when it was played in the OCG, was just a side deck card when it came out. So, although we're already maining Super Poly, so maybe we'll just main this card because it is really strong in the mirror. Yeah, I think it we'll see play in the side at least, and maybe the main. So I hope it's getting kind of long now, but I hope you enjoyed that little just talk about what's going on in the format, what's going to happen for this upcoming YCS, how strong Despia is as a whole. I know I didn't talk about the fact that like Floowandereeze didn't top or get that far. I think Floowandereeze was not in top 16 at all for this event, so I know I didn't talk about that. I still think that deck's really strong. Just as a quick, tidbit, I think it's stronger than other decks like Salamangreat, Dragonlink, Tri-Brigade that all got top 16, which it didn't. But it's it did have an Exodia that was Dimension Shifter, and there is the best deck can play through it, so maybe that is why. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Subscribe, like. I appreciate it so much.